working? Can you hear me? Everybody can hear me. Thank you. General business, first up is verification. The meeting was properly posted.
It was.
Thank you, Stacy. Moving on, for opportunity for citizens to speak, is there anybody here that would like to address the committee who's not an employee? Yeah, they could if they wanted to.
Of course.
Alrighty, moving on, as I see nobody. Next up is bright lights. And they'd be from Meadowbrook, using technology to redefine learning. Welcome.
Thank you. Just need a little
Thanks for
setup.
coming.
So my name is Jessica Berry. I'm the principal at Meadowbrook, and tonight I have asked my incredible team to share with you how technology is redefining the learning experience here at Meadowbrook. And so if you asked our kids tonight, we're thinking
my
about
code
taking
come up
those
there?
iPads and those devices away,
Oh, my
I
code
think
come up.
you would face a large
I hope so.
confrontation because these are some pretty tough kids.
Ever revolt.
So, to my right, I have Ann Blado, who is a fifth grade teacher. I have Wendy Anderson, who is a third grade teacher. And my students, I have a fourth grader named Cece. I've got fifth graders named Ania, Kiara, and George. And they're excited to share with you how technology is enhancing their learning opportunities.
Excellent.
Technical difficulties.
Love it.
Plugged in. So they're very excited to share with you some of their work that they've been doing in the classroom. One of the things we're going to talk about is a business partnership that Meadowbrook has with a company called HDI. And Kiara's going to start us off with that.
Yep, here we go.
All right, Kiara.
HDI is a Meadowbrook partner company. They support our business program called Meadowmart. HDI has met with Meadowmart staff to select products and has donated many products for our school store. They also match donations that Meadowmart has made to local charities. They challenged our students to create product videos to showcase their favorite products on their Toys for Tots website.
Our task was to create a 30-second product video to show the features and benefits and the target audience for our team's toy. The audience was the U.S. Marine Corps Foundation. The purpose was that the Marines spend millions. Our goal was to help them choose what kind of toys boys and girls ages from 0 to 17 would want for the Toys for Tots program.
So from our mini lessons, we learned from that video on YouTube that is displayed that to stabilize your shot, and then that the setting looks decent and nice looking, and then add light, not too dark or bright.
YouTube is one of our instructors, right?
We are proud to present our final products launch to the Marines.
Want to just speak to them then, or?
To the videos?
Yeah.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So what the kids did is they had a 30-second target time frame to hit, but their job was to apply the skills that they had learned in our mini lessons, where they learned about how to do a product video, how to talk about the features and benefits, how to stabilize the shot, how to use good lighting, good audio to create a project that was actually and is actually being used by our partner company with the U.S. Marine Corps. They are part of the Toys for Tots program.
So these are like two little
These
commercials.
are two of the commercials that the kids in their teams came up with.
Share the the Google slide presentation. You can watch it yourself if you'd like. Mic over? Where you go? What? We'll change the mic? Oh, you don't have a mic over.
Yeah, I don't know if that was long enough.
I'm sorry, sweetie. This is for me. Oh. Try running the video with the mic.
Age group for Marine Marbles is from 5 through 13, and both boys and
Because I'm in. Okay.
girls are not
That's not
for
gonna
younger
work.
kids because they could use them. The most important
Let me try this.
feature is the emoji graphics on each marble. There are 12
coming
different
through?
emojis. The smooth, bright colors make them so cute. You can play a game of marbles or
coming
just
through
fidget with them if you're bored. They also have high quality material and will look great for years of fun. You can also express your true feelings if someone asks. Thank you for your time and thank you for your service.
And here's the other one.
And the kids love the idea that the authentic audience was the actual Marine Corps from all over the U.S.
Our
They are
product
watching
is the
these
Pearls
videos.
and Charms bracelet
Sorry.
craft. This craft is for ages 6 and up. It is mostly for girls. This craft includes 4 charms, 25 pearl beads, and 225 accent beads. Also, this craft includes an elastic cord that is 3 yards long and included with the kit. This has an easy to follow instructions and makes 10 bracelets. You can find this on the HDI website in the Arts and Crafts section. Thank you for your time and service in the U.S. Marine Forces.
And how many did they make? How many commercials were there?
We had groups of 2 or 3 students working together, and overall they made 24 different product videos. And then they voted on which ones they thought were the most effective using the rubric that we had created together, and they had great feedback from each other.
Okay, and I'm here to talk about how we redefine learning in third grade last year. I've decided to reach out on my personal learning network on Twitter to a teacher that I could have my kids connect with, and the class was in Tanzania, Africa. It was an international school, and a student from last year, Cece, is here to talk about what we did. My goal was to expand our classroom outside the walls of Meadowbrook, and it's to actually, help them understand other cultures, because the workplace is becoming more global, and kids are going to have to be more culturally sensitive. So Cece, take it away.
Miss Anderson looked for a teacher on Seesaw, our digital learning journal, who wanted to connect with our class. A teacher reached out from an international school in Tanzania, East Africa, and offered to connect their classes through Seesaw's blog feature.
Mapping skills to show them where they're located compared to us.
We shared our writing with our friends from Tanzania. Using Google Docs, our new friends gave us feedback by commenting on our writing. They helped us make our writing better. We also found out they didn't know what winter was all about.
They didn't.
We wanted to show our friends in Africa what we wear outside for recess, so we sent them this picture through Seesaw. We also shared pictures of the fun we have in the snow.
And this part of the project was all the kids' idea. They're like, hey, we should show them everything we have to wear to play in the snow. And they laid it on the ground and said, take a picture, Mrs. Anderson.
We learned that our friends in Tanzania were learning the same things we were in math. We gave our friends feedback too.
Happy to answer any questions that you might have for us.
Keats.
Any feedback from either the Marine Corps or Tanzania as far as a reply back or any response back?
Well, our 5th graders this year just completed the project Friday.
Okay,
So
so it was
it's all
just recent.
going
Okay.
out to them. But our business partner is thrilled with the end results. They were kind of watching and monitoring and giving feedback to the kids along the way, just kind of reminding, no faces in the videos. We need you to reshoot this little section. And so they were giving some good feedback. They loved how the kids organized their presentations to the task, the audience, and the purpose. They also appreciated the thank you for your service at the end. That became their tagline, so they love that part of it as well.
And Greg, the teacher in Tanzania and I and the kids communicated all year. One thing we did together was a global read aloud. I recorded myself reading a read aloud to the class, sent it to her, and then she did the same. We couldn't share that live because as the kids learned, they were in a different time zone. So we had a lot of learning around that too. They're like, well, why aren't they in school when we're in school? So we got out some globes and talked about what's different about night and day and the seasons between the different sides of the world.
Did the students speak English?
It was an American school, so yes.
Oh, it was an American school. Okay.
International
So who were the
International
students?
schools, yeah.
They were children of Americans?
Well, they're international school, but yes, they're, for some reason or another, their parents are located there.
Probably employed or. Good, what a wonderful experience.
Bungert.
Yes, I'd like to ask one of the kids, you said that they would be vicious with us if we took away their computers, right? Okay, we're not going to do that. But I would like somebody to tell me what you were able to do with the computer or what you've learned using the computer or the iPad that's different from what it would have been without it. Does that make sense? I think so.
Done our projects without an iPad? The way that we could have done them without an iPad? iMovie was pretty fundamental to completing our task, right? Okay. We also used the green screen, so the kids learned some green screen app work. And that was also very interesting because one of our groups happened to be wearing green shirts. The day that they were, the day that they were filming. And so we had to make a change there. And, you know, authentic learning experience is
Sure.
really what it was. And, so being able to give them that experience, to really have that authentic audience was really pivotal.
Thank you.
One thing I really noticed that after they sent their writing to their friends in Tanzania, the kids in Tanzania were pretty critical of some of their writing. The next time we sent them a writing piece, oh, they were in much better shape. So that authentic audience really helps.
Excellent.
We all know students learning from students is extremely effective, maybe more than teachers.
Absolutely.
I hate to say that, but it's true.
Oh, it is true.
Yeah.
Yes, and students getting an audience of the U.S. Marine Corps, the looks on their faces when I told them what we were going to be doing was priceless. They're like, really?
Uh-huh.
The respect.
They're really big guys? I'm like, yes. Because they have to buy all these toys for Toys for Tots, and they need guidance, and who's
That's
better
right.
to ask than a bunch of kids?
That's right.
So, it's great.
Excellent project.
Other questions, comments? All right, thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
letting us show off the
Thank you.
Thanks
kids.
for coming.
Let's rearrange this.
All righty, next on our agenda are action items for the evening. First up would be the approval of the teaching and learning minutes from the October 2nd, 2018 meeting. I'd be looking for a motion.
So moved.
And a second, Mr. Dietz, thank you very much. Any questions, concerns, comments on the minutes? No? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Moving on to our next action item would be the approval of ACP, Education for Employment Plan.
All right, good evening.
Evening, how are you doing this evening?
Doing well.
Good.
Thank you for having us come and present this annually. We have obligation to share with the board and the community about our academic and career planning. And so my role tonight is to simply ask that after hearing the presentation from Amanda and Molly, that the board approve our ACP plan for this school year. Turn it over to Amanda and Molly.
Thanks for having us. We wanted to start with the mission of academic and career planning, and that aligns with our school district mission. The impact of academic and career planning is to produce responsible graduates who will begin their adult life with the knowledge, skills, motivation, and a self-directed plan for career and lifelong success. So this year, what does that look like? Last year, you'll remember, was our big rollout year with academic and career planning grades 6 through 12. We are still on a very good pathway. Our lessons are differentiated from 6th grade to 12th grade because we know that our 6th graders have very different needs than our 12th graders do. Each grade level has about 15 lessons that were put together by a district committee. We had counselors, teachers, administrators, all sorts of different leadership on that team to ensure that the lessons are engaging for our students. The rest of the lessons that the students go through can be building based, so tying into the building goals. Second step comes in there. Some different social emotional lessons are tied in as well. Each building has a designated time for academic and career planning. They all have different names, ranging from homeroom to ACP time, but they're all there. Something that's new this year, so we've stayed the same with our lessons. We've added some new lessons. We've added some new lessons on what is career-based learning. We've also added some new lessons on Inspire, and we're not talking Inspire at North High School. Inspire Wisconsin is a new feature for us this year. It allows our educators to connect with outside businesses and our students to connect with outside businesses. Everyone who's part of Inspire has gone through thorough background checks. There's a discussion board, so I can post what is it really like to be an electrical engineer. And there is someone from possibly Quad Graphics who is on Inspire as a career coach and will actually answer me from the student side. Now, as an educator, I might want to bring in an engineer to my classroom to speak about that. And instead of making hundreds of phone calls, I can easily go on to Inspire and put out my request, and I can recruit people to come into my classroom. We're also doing continual updates for our parent and our community. It's all posted on our website, and that newsletter is also going out through our school newsletters in Infinite Campus and or on the school websites. Another fun thing we've introduced this year, and this is, to me, I think the most exciting, is something called Careers Uncovered. And this is a partnership with the Waukesha County Business Alliance, and it's giving educators an experience to go out to a local business for a half day and learn about all the different career possibilities in that field. Right now, they offer a workshop for us to go out to see the building and trades field, healthcare, IT, and manufacturing. And all of these are industries that there's a definite need to fill some talent gaps. So that's why they've aligned with us. It's offered to other districts throughout our area as well. We've gone on a few, three, right? We've gone on 3 of them. We've taken groups of teachers, and our teachers have just raved about the experience that they've had, because I did not know how many different career paths there truly are in construction. I figured you're really good at building something, you go into construction. No, I could have had a career path in construction as well. If you're interested in attending any of those Careers Uncovered events, we would love to open that up to you. You have some information in your packet, and just let one of us know. They're usually in the morning, and please come.
Could you maybe provide us with a schedule?
Yep, it's in your packet. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
They already have the dates set up and locations other than one. So we went to Tri-North and Dedicated Computing and SafeNet Consulting, and they were just, it's so fascinating. You know, in my role, I'm starting to see all of the amazing companies that are in our neighborhood, more or less Waukesha County. So it's a huge benefit for our educators to see what career paths exist and how to talk to the kids about them, and also to see their curriculum. Oh, this is where you might use geometry in the healthcare setting. Another thing that we've been working on is a regional career pathway pilot. There's actually a grant that is funded through J.C. Morgan Chase, and they are working on creating a pathway that's very clear for students and educators to see how to enter into a workforce. This pilot group focused on nursing, and it's industry-driven. Industry partners help consult on that pilot, and they basically outlined, and in your packet you should have the outline of the steps that a high school student could take, courses that they could take, credentialing that they could get, what classes they could take in college and beyond in order to reach different career pathway levels. So from a medical assistant all the way down to a registered nurse. It really does a great job of outlining a very sequential path to a career. and shows very clear steps that the student would need to take. So that nursing pathway is already out and publicized. That group is meeting again, I think actually next week, and we're going to start tackling information technology, manufacturing, or construction. There's different groups throughout the region. One other group up north did manufacturing already, so that kind of did some of the groundwork, but then we take what they have and really tailor it to what Waukesha offers for our students. And then the last piece in your packet is really the bigger document that's the actual Education for Employment Plan. And the idea behind this, again, is to just outline some labor market data. Amanda alluded to the fact that the 4 high-demand industries in Waukesha County are healthcare, manufacturing, IT, and building construction. I don't go a day without hearing we need employees for our skilled workforce, or Foxconn, one of the two. It's a good day if I hear both. But this is really what's driving our education nowadays, is how do we make sure the talent pipeline is continuing. So the career plan really outlines what we've talked about with the academic and career planning. The goal really, I say it over and over again, is to start to see a correlation between what our students are taking for coursework and what they choose to grow up to be, to aspire to be. If I want to be an accountant, I should probably take the accounting course in our high school for college credit. There should be a correlation. So we're hoping to see more of that. In addition, it outlines some really key numbers that I just wanted to show you. Is on page 2, it talks about some of the different programs that our students have access to. One is dual enrollment. Last year, we had 18 students in the dual enrollment program with WCTC. This year, we're at 36. It's a huge growth, mainly because they added some new tracks for our students to have access to. But these students are attending WCTC full-time during the day and attending a high school class maybe 1 hour of the day. And they are just eating it up. Amanda and I got to visit with the building and construction students. They had to show us how to wire something that I now know why we pay people to do this. It took me probably 15 minutes longer than what they had to. And it was really entertaining for them to try and teach us, the students. So we're starting to see a huge growth in that. Also, we had 58 seniors last year earn 71 different industry credentials. And that, again, continues to grow. Anything from a CNA, auto certificate, the students are getting real skills that they can take and apply in the workforce. On page 3 also, it talks about Youth Apprentice. Last year we had 20 seniors in Youth Apprentice, and that's about 8% of our population. But this year we've already exceeded our last year's Youth Apprentice group by the addition of marketing. So we're starting to see a real growth in work-based learning and the ones that tie directly to really growth industries. Last page, or last point of reference is the credit that students are earning for college. I collect a lot of data, and we have 23 different AP courses that you've already heard about one time or another. We have 4 different courses that offer our students advanced standing, and probably 14 that allow for transcripted credit through WCTC. And that alone at WCTC was equaled over 2,000 credits that our seniors earned. So Waukesha does a phenomenal job, and it's all thanks to a lot of you here for providing our students really great access to programs and education that help them be career and college ready. What questions do you have for us?
Well, first of all, credit goes to the teachers for developing these
Oh,
courses.
absolutely.
This is absolutely phenomenal. And what a wonderful, wonderful thing to provide students with a career and technical education programs, because I think, unfortunately, some people think that our kids come out of high school and they're not ready for anything except to go to college, and that's not true. When you come through a program like this, you are ready to go into some technical programs in the community.
And what a life changer for some of our families to have the education paid for, to get a career that's self-sustaining. You know, you can become a welder and make a phenomenal living, and for some of our families, that's exactly the access that they need.
And it also shows that it's a very important career. We need that in the community. You know, even though it doesn't require a college education, it's very important. What would we do without those careers, you know?
We're lucky to have, you know, friends that are carpenters now and then. Okay, we just have to
Any other
approve it
comments?
then.
Roddy?
I just have to brag on one of our students who happens to be a colleague of mine. He is enrolled with the dual enrollment program, and I would say that you don't have to wait till they finish with school, because he is so on fire with this. At work, we have these 2 steps, and we have to get carts and lug extremely heavy, all sorts of things. And he's looking at it, and I see him standing, and I'm like, Hunter, get to work. And
Hunter.
and he goes, I can fix this. And 2-3 days later, we had a ramp
Oh.
that everybody in the office uses. And he's, I got it, I can do this. And yeah, so we are reaping the benefits now.
I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
But I'm so proud when I see him and the excitement that he has because of these skills that he's learned, and he's putting them to use already. So, thank you.
Beats.
Go ahead. Amanda or Molly, do students in the district have some sort of like digital portfolio or anything that they keep track of?
Yes, so for academic and career planning, starting in 6th grade, they have a portfolio. It's actually Google Docs based right now, so it can transfer with them once they move up, and even if they move to school. Ideally, that portfolio is used at home too to talk about some of the career planning that's being done at school.
So all students in the district
Yes.
would have one?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great,
And our
thank you.
schools are ultimately in charge of monitoring those.
Right.
There are certain completion standards that we have for the portfolio, and then schools have the ability to add additional items that they see fit.
And would guidance counselors have access to that? Okay.
Our student services staff also help with the ACP process, so they are just as integral in having those conversations. I know they're starting to use them in junior conferences as well, but really it's the idea that we see growth over time. In 6th grade, I wanted to be this because that's how big my bubble was, but with growth, we see change. And
Thank you.
A few times during the year, we bring a larger team with representatives from each of the secondary schools together to provide
Fine-tune.
feedback and to make updates.
You have several high school offerings, courses, et cetera. Are they the same at all schools, or do they vary by school?
primarily, they're all the same. Where you see the variety is with the 2 academies.
Well, that's quite a bit of,
It's a very robust catalog, yes. That is another great thing that Waukesha has, that many school districts don't put their money in that basket, so.
wow, phenomenal.
Mr. Baumgart.
I'm going to ask about the co-op program. Over the years, that's been kind of a hard one to maintain. There's been times when it was shut down, or not shut down, but reduced at least. How healthy is that program currently?
Compared to last year, it's fairly static. What we're seeing is more students transition to youth apprentice as
Okay.
opposed to co-op and internship, so that helps balance it out.
It does, okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yes. Let's say, for example, that someone would attend Monday, October 8th, manufacturing. What might happen that day?
I can talk to kind of through what we did with Tri North. The first day the first little bit was kind of an introduction to what is academic and career planning, just to make sure we're all on the same page. And then typically they have people from the business come in. We met with the president, the vice president, the lawyer, a marketing person, but they all came in to talk about that industry and the careers and kind of their unique career paths. You know, we had the lawyer, for example, didn't intend to work in construction, but haphazardly came across a job and started working in the summer and fell in love with the industry and realized I can do both in this space. So they, show you around. Some of them they give you tours. Some of them they have you doing things. Putting things together. Dedicated computing. You had you walking through the manufacturing floor and you got to wear all this crazy garb so you didn't electrocute any of the equipment. Fascinating. It's so eye-opening. It really is.
So these sessions are for the teachers?
Teachers, anyone that wants to learn more about these careers and how they impact our students.
How about students, not students?
No, they go on schools to skills field trips that are similar.
Okay, great. Wonderful program.
Else? Are we talking to Foxconn?
I
know
don't
Milwaukee
have a
is.
hotline to
Okay.
them,
Well, I know
no.
Milwaukee. I know MPS is,
Oh, man.
so.
Write that down.
Yeah, right, yeah. Do
Add that to
something
the
at-
list.
They gotta do something at Bradley Tech,
Yeah.
so, but I know that they're in talks with Foxconn. So it would be an important thing to get into, because we could do a lot of coding. We have a lot of coding. We could
Yes.
a lot of that there, so. Alrighty,
Point.
thank you very much. Unless you have,
To approve.
yeah, it is an action item. So I'll be looking for a motion.
Moved.
Roddy has moved. Second?
Second.
Okay. Mrs. Brezink, second. Any questions? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 5-0. Great presentation, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Good work. All righty. Next up on our action items would be approval
You'd have to get up and come back.
yeah, walk around the room. Approval of AP Environmental Science course.
All right.
Is it just you?
Just me tonight.
What? Who's your partner in crime?
My partners in crime are at.
Oh, you did?
Gave them the night off. No.
Third time's the charm.
Had a wonderful opportunity for the past 2 board meetings to present some
Yes.
information, and so I'm here tonight to ask for formal approval to add AP Environmental Science, and about programming, that's where my mind went. AP Environmental Science to our list of AP courses in the course catalog for the next school year. Entertain any questions you still may have.
Mr. Baumgart.
No, I start by taking the motion right away, and I'd like to move for approval of the new advanced planning environmental, that is a mouthful, isn't it?
For some reason, it's,
Okay, environmental science course, advanced.
Your second? Mrs. Roddy? Discussion?
Yeah.
Yes?
Now,
Mr.
you know, you've
Baumgart.
given us an awful lot over the last 2 months, Dan, and the team very positively. Is there anything new that's come up? I mean, is it fitting in with college?
yeah. Yes, the team's excited. They're really looking forward to digging into building this out. We've talked to a teacher over at South, and so we have a growing team to come together and finish building out the course with the month by month and day to day.
That's the college board, we're still in sync with that?
We're still in sync, and
Okay, so nothing has turned around or anything?
nothing's turned around.
Thank you.
And they will start taking it next year, right?
Next year.
Next school year, okay. Well, it's certainly going to cover a lot of wonderful, wonderful science information that will just help students move on in the science field. I'm very impressed with all the things that they're going to learn. Wow.
There's a lot in there, and
Oh,
very excited to begin to hear the conversations and digging into the current event topics that
will this be a junior year or earlier?
most likely a junior year, where there's a strong emphasis in having a background in biology
Yes, I see
and
that.
chemistry. So it kind of places it there, but it certainly is an option for students who have had that
Sure.
background earlier to take that course.
Well, let me ask you, is biology available to students in their freshman year?
Yes.
Okay,
Biology is the typical freshman course, and chemistry is the sophomore course.
okay, very good.
Mr. Baumgart.
How would this sync with or coordinate with our 2 charter schools, engineering and health?
But our engineering and health, so this would be considered an elective
Okay.
science course, so any student who's in either one of the academies would be able to add this as one of their elective courses.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Concerns? All righty. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank your team, Dan.
I will.
All right, our final action item for the evening is approval of 18-19 overnight field trips.
Okay.
Are you gonna do a motion and
Yeah, I'll
discussion?
do a motion
Okay.
and then discussion.
Okay.
I move to accept the applications for overnight field trips as presented.
Second? Mr. Dietz, all righty.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Mrs.
now-
Brezink.
Okay. I don't know who I would do. Is it for you, Stacy? On the first one, on the trip, academic decathlon, state competition, Wisconsin Dells, March 6th, there's no student fees mentioned, okay, in that one. Okay. Then in the field trip for wrestling to Merrill, Wisconsin, student expectations are missing. And I'm sure that they have expectations, but they're not in the packet, as I think they probably should be.
That's probably my error.
Oh, okay.
Generally speaking, if they provide that to me, I include it, and if they don't provide it to me, we follow our co-curricular expectations, which generally I would
Okay.
include, but I probably forgot to on that one.
Okay, okay. Then, let's see, is there anything else? Then in the trip to, the robotics trip to Chicago, Midwest Regional Tournament, student expectations are also missing.
Well, that's again probably my error.
Okay, that's
If you'd
all right.
like, I can follow up on that for you.
Okay, we'll bring it to your attention, so
Yeah,
then,
I
you know,
appreciate that.
You know, and then student expectations are also missing in the trip from Wisconsin High School Model United Nations, UW Milwaukee. Student expectations are missing there also.
Oh, my gosh, well, I apologize
Pattern.
for that.
Yeah, and they're missing with the trip to Core 2062 Robotics. And
All
I
right.
would think that you would want that in there, especially if it's going home.
I'll take a look at all of those
Okay,
trips. I've
okay.
marked them on my form.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, I'll follow up with you.
Sorry for being so picky, but I just think if we have student expectations, then they should be a part of the whole
We do, and that
program.
is my intent to do, so I
I'm sure it is.
apologize.
I'm sure it is.
Are you okay moving forward?
Pardon me?
Are you okay moving forward with
I'm
the-
just
Okay,
fine, Mr.
all righty.
Just fine.
Any other questions for Stacy or concerns related to the field trips? Nope. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? 5-0.
Thank you.
Good eye, Mrs. Brezink. All righty. So, that concludes our action items for the evening. Moving on to information items. Our first item is elementary science update. Welcome, ladies. Glad to have you here.
Get myself set up. No. Apparently. Yep. So I am Erica Miller, and I am a science enthusiast, is what I'm calling myself. This is Caitlin Mishesky from Rose Glen. She teaches kindergarten, and Tanith Sexton from Whittier, 4th grade this year. So these are two of the ladies who are part of the science curriculum writing process. We have a team that represented all elementary schools across the district from varying levels and a couple coaches as well. We also included 2 dual language teachers so that we can make sure that we got as many voices at the table as possible. So what we were able to do is a few years ago, we really worked to make sure that the Wisconsin standards were embedded really well into our program. And we wanted to provide resources for teachers. So we spent last spring and this summer making planners for our teachers. They are broken into 6-week units, 1 per trimester. We included daily lesson plans, resources for both teachers and students, as well as assessments. So you can see on there are very detailed day-by-day activities that teachers can choose to do. The requirements of the curriculum are teach the standards so that students are well-versed. These are resources for teachers to do that. We made the PowerPoint presentations for them so they weren't bogged down with extra work to do. We also kind of shifted how we are assessing students. Instead of assessing them on can they memorize content, we wanted to make sure they can actually do science. So they are moving to 4 learning targets of asking questions and defining problems, plan and carrying out investigations, analyze and interpret data, and construct explanations and design solutions.
We felt that this was a much better representation of what scientists do on a daily basis, not necessarily knowing that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. We also wrote continuums for all of these learning targets. The continuums are available for teachers to use as their building sees fit. We are not making a district mandate for them to be used in any way, but they are really great for rubrics for teachers, so that if you're using assessment, every one that we built ties directly to the continuums. So like I said, one of our biggest goals is that we wanted students doing science. We didn't want them reading about it in books or doing worksheets to show that they understand it. We wanted them actively engaged in the process. So you can see in those pictures, students are engaged at looking at microscopes. In 5th grade, they actually build what are called biomes in a bottle. So you can see there's plants growing on the top, and the bottom is a fish that is actually creating a mini ecosystem. So that is self-sustaining, and they're growing them, and they'll see how they go throughout the school year. And on the far right are stream tables where students are monitoring how different water and weather can affect the land and erosion, which is very applicable this fall. As you notice, the Fox River tends to flood a lot, and it really has a huge impact on our local environment. So that is all tied into that. We've also really pushed a lot of community connections. All of our units and planners have community connections built in so that teachers aren't having to go out and look for them. They're there. We have people who can come in for speakers, and we also have places where students can go and get more field experience. I always have to do a plug for the environmental ed program, but that is tied directly into this program as well. So it's not just a separate field trip, it's woven right into it. We've also included science notebooks this year. We asked that a science notebook be added to every student's supply list. But we also allowed and encouraged digital notebooking. So you can see on the left, we have some digital notebooking that students are doing, and they're kind of going back and forth with their notebooks. And students, even in kindergarten on the far right, you can see are actively participating in the notebook process. One of our anchor books for grades 3 through 5 is a book about all the different notes that scientists take. From someone like Beatrix Potter, who was actually a scientist, to Einstein, to Newton. They show actual excerpts from their notebooks, and we talk about why that's really important. So really, we're just really excited about the new programs that we're doing. The most important part, though, is that we are asking for constant feedback from our teachers so that we know they're doing awesome stuff in their classroom, too. Just a group of 20 of us aren't the beers of all knowledge, so we're asking for them to give us their things, and we'll incorporate that into the curriculum so that we can constantly be updating it year after year as we go through this.
Baumgart.
As long as we've got a couple teachers here, let's
Please
let's
do.
get a little bit of that feedback. Tell us, how it's going, how the kids are responding to it, and engaged and stuff like that.
Sure. What I really like about it is in the previous year, science was just kind of thrown in, like whatever 20 minutes you had left over, but now it actually fits in.
Shame on you.
I know, I'm sorry. But now it actually fits in with what we're doing, especially with literacy and writing. We actually tied a couple of the writing units into what we're doing in science. And randomly you would go on an environmental ed field trip, and it was all right, it's great, it worked, but they didn't really have any background knowledge going into it. So now in kindergarten, the first unit is all about community. So we learned about how to make the world a better place. And then when we went to the environmental ed field trip, they were actually doing recycling. I've had recyclers come into the classroom. So it all kind of ties together. Even the language workshop books tie in with our science units. Now it just kind of makes sense with the flow of the day, I think, is my favorite part about it.
I just love how it's providing students hands-on opportunities to really explore and to engage in science, and it's allowing them to see problems or things that will affect the whole world and as we move forward and as they move forward in their science learning. So.
Do you have the materials in your building, in your classrooms, in your grade level, or do you have to get them from central office?
So that's a great question. We made sure to order all of the necessary materials. We worked really hard to use what we already had. So we've purchased FOSS several years ago, and we used a lot of the FOSS in our building. So we didn't just throw it away. It's a great resource. And then the things that were above and beyond that, we provided for all of the buildings. And the people who were on the science committee, all of the stuff was delivered to their rooms, so they were
Yeah.
like a UPS office for a little bit. But now everyone has what they need.
Well, that's outstanding, because that's what made it difficult. In the past, we didn't have the materials. And sometimes the central office had them and sometimes they didn't. So that's probably one of the most powerful parts of this program, and students hands-on. It wasn't that way in the past, and that's great, especially in kindergarten, right?
Yeah, they love it. I mean,
course.
that's one of the most exciting parts of the day in kindergarten.
Of course.
Curiosity.
Yeah, that's huge.
Any other questions? Excellent. Ladies, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much for coming. All right, our next information item is the middle school scheduling meeting. Thought it was a basketball team. You guys didn't dress up for us, did you?
Yeah. I thought so.
We come to school,
Appreciate
in sweats.
You do not.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having us present tonight about middle school scheduling. We want to provide the board with an update on wonderful 2 days of learning and information feedback from a group of teachers who came together with the team up here to talk about our current schedule, and then what are we going to do with that information now that we've had that. So our central question for this presentation is really, how do we structure a day to maximize for student achievement? So that was the mindset in which we decided to bring this team together. And we're each going to take the opportunity throughout this presentation to talk through some of the reasons why, and then all the way through to what our next steps are.
Yeah, I'm going to put a little voice to, as we start to look at our current schedule, we want to start identifying, why are we focusing on the issue of schedule, and then what is the issue perhaps around our current middle school schedule. So as we started to identify some of those things, we framed around a couple of areas. One, we put a high importance on building student connection. We're currently seeing a trend, a dip from fifth to sixth grade as it relates to student achievement in areas of math and reading. So that's something kind of on the forefront. As we look at our current schedule, it's been difficult to have built-in collaboration time for teachers. So as we look at like that common time, or as we look at like a house model, having that time to meet within the school day, we've identified some barriers to making that happen across the three schools. Really seeing a benefit in fostering those student connections, and we know sometimes that transition to fifth to sixth can be a little bit bumpy, and we're mindful of the structure that we've created. As you're well aware, we have some new additions across the system with Avid and computer science. So we look at like Avid, that's something that will be in full implementation in terms of our secondary schools, 6 through 12 by next year, with Horning being on board. So we have, those are some considerations. We also know that we have an obligation to meet the needs of all of our learners. So as we look at students that may require an intervention in reading or math, we also don't want them to miss out on an elective perhaps. So those are things that we have to problem solve and go back to different things to make sure that we're meeting elective choices perhaps, but also meeting their needs at the universal level of instruction. And we want to make sure there's really coherent communication. So as we look at interventions, we want that just to be a really cohesive model, and we think there's an opportunity to improve upon that perhaps. Like I mentioned, really a focus on a high quality level of instruction and ensuring that we can carry out that framework for coherent instruction. We have a plan, we have great resources, but is our structure set up our current schedule set up to be able to do that. So there's just some questions that we've started to explore, and we'll get into a little bit more detail as we go through our time with you today.
Absolutely. So when we think about these issues, it's things that we as educators, when we build a master schedule, we say we want to intentionally build in time for all of our priorities. And then once you set that, anything additional sometimes gets bolted on or glued or duct taped or whatnot. And so this was an opportunity for us to bring a really good cross-functional team of individuals, facilitated by Dr. Mike Reddig, who's a professor of education at James Madison University. I use this term in all honesty, a scheduling guru, because he does this for a living. The way his mind works, we can have a conversation like we are right now and come up with all sorts of different scheduling models just off the top of his head. So he provided us with 2 days worth of learning and asking us really critical questions. And you can see the staff from all 3 middle schools picked by the leaders to represent not only a cross-section of their building, but across the district, a cross-section of every discipline that we have. So this was a really powerful group, and we really push each other's thinking. Again, facilitated by Dr. Reddig, so that we could all be learners within the process and not be seen as directing the process in any way, shape, or form. So that was the reason for bringing in Dr. Reddig.
Over the course of the 2 days, there was lots of things learned, what could be done, what couldn't be done, all different opportunities, but really we were looking at what was driving our schedule and what were current models or models we could move to. Drivers that have been out there are start and end times. Those are discussions that have been across the community. Do we alter elementary and secondary? Do we extend school days? How does that look? Transportation impacts. So there are lots of things that go into that and drive a current schedule, be financials, people, places. What does that look like? We've all done things at the middle level to try to best utilize all of the time possible. Do we utilize passing time, connect classes to lunches to utilize transition time more effectively, squeeze minutes out whenever possible? We looked at required courses and elective courses. What does state mandate? What are elective opportunities? What are kids thriving in? What are they asking for, and what do they hope for? So those drove some things, and connected to that right away then was traveling staff. Amongst our 3 buildings, we share with either elementary schools or secondary schools based on certifications, student interest, school need, which then impact when courses can be offered. For example, if I share a music teacher, I may only be able to offer them the first 3 periods, and that person travels on. So I can only allow those courses to be given at a certain time, which then puts some impact on students and teachers. We also looked at models, and if you've been in the district, do you remember the time of the house in the middle level concept? Cohorts of teachers, cohorts of students, and earlier we talked about that capacity of building relationships and the power and impact that that has. So looking at 2-person, 3-person, 4-person, 6-person teams, we all have some aspect of that in our buildings currently. Not quite as maybe as full scale as Bob has at Horning with the house concept, but we have it in places and are utilizing it to its fullest potential that we can under our current circumstances. We also looked at interventions and extensions, and many times when you think of interventions, it's seen as a deficit. What are we going to take away in order to improve? And looking at models that would be much more proactive to build in those pieces so you're not taking away from a student who's already feeling they're at a deficit, and addressing those issues as opportunities rather than barriers. One of those was a unit lunch philosophy or idea where every student has it built into their schedule. Therefore, it's much more proactive. It takes away your institutionalized looking lunch, 250 kids, 30 minutes, get them through, get them out, move on to the next piece. It would allow for students to connect with teachers in multiple areas and venues, provide them an opportunity for a built-in intervention block or extension block, an opportunity to work on other skills, other interests. So rather than reacting to a student need, it's already built in. And the flex time, going back to a house or team model, using the professional judgment and the capacity of our staff to use time flexibly to meet needs of students to have the greatest impact. So all of those pieces then come into that scheduling dynamic.
But you're not there yet.
Not yet.
Right.
So our possible timeline, what we're looking at is, comes on a good day, and hopefully, referendum will come through. But, so the idea was to follow that timeline. So we're looking at, whatever we decide is to implement it at the earliest in the 2020, 2021. Which means the next 2 years would be a planning phase. So our next steps currently, right now, is we have, each of us have our building team, scheduling team meeting this next week or two to kind of plan what the communication is with the staff, of what we've learned so far in the summer and kind of our next steps. We'll be sharing information to the directors, as well as meeting with HR. Right now, our idea is this going to be cost neutral. So as far as staffing wise and all that kind of stuff, that it should not raise or lower that piece. And then final updates and stuff, winter and then the spring with the executive cabinet.
So when we think about these 2 days, the impetus for coming together was to say, are we maximizing our current schedule to our greatest benefit? And generally, you start that conversation with like, okay, this is the structure we have, and then how can we maximize it? We start with a fundamentally different concept of bringing a group of people and saying, what is it that is really our middle school philosophy of learning? And then saying, okay, what are the things that currently drive our current schedule? But then take what our philosophy is, take what our current schedule is, and then saying, are the two in alignment? And not really coming at it from the standpoint of, we might discover through the conversations and feedback we gotta make some tweaks, but we're heading in the right direction. Or is there something that we need to make a change on? And then what are the next action steps, and who do we need to contact with? So hopefully this provides a little bit of insight into the 2 days of learning. As the team has shared, they've got next steps of following up with the individuals from August and then sharing with their larger staff and gaining more feedback around those same questions that I just shared.
Sure.
So we're happy to answer any additional questions you have.
Dan, is there any place, in Wisconsin that has the program that you think is ideal and would like to, bring to Waukesha?
That's a difficult question because we're right now in the process of asking exactly what is it that we want to ensure for each one of our students. Once we have that, then we'll be able to better answer that question.
So you have you worked with other school districts, or are you pretty much on your own?
Well, Dr. Reddick, the knowledge and breadth that he brings is he has shared information with us in terms of where we're excelling in Waukesha compared to Wisconsin and compared to the nation, and areas where he's like, what's interesting how we've approached it, and here's another alternative to think about. So we're bringing all that to our staff and letting our staff really kind of provide this team with feedback on what direction to go.
So ultimately, will it be about scheduling?
The schedule only helps to ensure intentionality around planning for instruction, right?
Sure.
The key ingredient in the sauce is what we do with our instructional minutes when our students are in front of us, right? And so the schedule just really helps us ensure that we're going to be intentional with our planning for that instruction.
Mr. Bumgarner.
This really kind of relates to the last question here, and that is the scheduling part of it isn't the only thing at work here. I mean, when you put up your issues at the beginning, for instance, the fifth to sixth grade dip, you're not going to wait on trying to work on that until you get a new schedule in place. So there are other issues here that you're hopefully attacking.
Absolutely, and I'll let each principal share. But everything that you saw in there are things that we're currently working with and discussing it was just an opportunity for us to say, you know what, let's broaden the feedback loop and really give us some 360-degree feedback to our process. So I'll let,
It's not a wait-and-see approach, because if you wait and see, it's too long. You've waited too long. So we're all doing things differently to meet different needs of different students, how it looks in a 700-person building to a 950-person building. But the schedule is somewhat of a structure of how we're delivering some things based on time allocation. The why, meeting the needs of students, is there. And the what we're doing is established with curricular design and development and instruction. How can we fit that in? And how can we take down barriers within a schedule so you don't see worries and barriers in the way, rather see opportunities and successes? If we waited for the perfect thing, I think we would still be waiting for a long, long time. So I think the big piece is trying to be much more proactive, to look and forecast where issues may come and have a schedule that can meet those needs already, rather than trying to react to something that has reared its head. In looking at different dynamics and socioeconomics of schools and what different things mean. A question was asked by a parent earlier this evening, would it all be the same? Probably not. The structures may be the same, but some implementation is going to look different based on student need and teacher talent.
I think collectively, and Dan alluded to this, we don't see a schedule as being a game changer, like, oh, we have this schedule, now, it's gonna elevate everything. So to your question,
point.
I think we wanna see if we can improve upon it. So it really started off as a conversation. In the end, we may look at it and say, you know what, we have some flexibility, we like our schedule, but it was a chance for us to pause and reflect and look at our current schedule and see if we could improve upon it. So that's why we wanted to bring stakeholders together. So I don't know if at least from my standpoint, we're in a decision where, we're gonna change the schedule necessarily, but we're going through that examination process right now.
Yeah, I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not against you looking at the schedule. I just wanted to make sure that this wasn't, as you addressed, that wasn't the fixer.
No.
It may be,
It could
may
be an
impact
avenue
it.
to a great solution to some areas, but it's not the one-all be-all.
Right, thank you.
Mr. Dietz.
I just want to say, with everything on your plates, your full schedules that you have, I just want to applaud you for your efforts to reflectively look at what you're currently doing, see what else is out there to try to make each of your schools a better place for our students. So thank you very much for going ahead, moving forward, and critically examining and trying to make each one of your schools better. Thank you.
I'm trying to remember, last month or two when we met, was it at middle school or high school, where you were looking at some kind of a waiver out of Madison to change something in the, is this included in here?
yes, so it certainly can be a potential, but.
Could you refresh us what that was about?
So we are petitioning DPI for flexibility around the requirements for art, music, and physical education.
Okay,
And so that flexibility is different than this discussion around the scheduling, but they can work hand in.
it would
they
fit
work
in there
hand
someplace.
hand.
Thank you. That was just trying to refresh my mind on what that was about. Thank you.
You mentioned that there's going to follow the path of the referendum. What happens if that referendum doesn't pass?
We just
I
wanted.
mean, what do you
we
mean
knew-
by that, I
yeah,
guess? Because
so-
that, I mean,
It's a good question, and so one of the questions that we started when we said we're gonna bring this team together was, okay, you're bringing a team together, so does that mean there's gonna be a necessarily action step to this? We wanted to answer that question up front without tying any one school or one team to a process and say, this is long in the future, and we're not talking about next year. Bottom line,
Okay.
like, everyone coming together, we're not talking about next year. We're talking about really far in the future, and this was one way to kind of forecast that out.
I gotcha. So there's no correlation, but it's happening no matter what, right? Okay, just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yep.
This is moving forward regardless
Yes.
of the outcome. Okay,
Good question.
yep, I'm a little nervous. Anything else?
Well, thank you all for being here, and
much,
especially for
guys.
being so dressed up. So impressed.
We had heard that you
congressional
like
hearing for a
us being
second.
dressed up, so.
A long day. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Well, that concludes our information items. And we have one discussion item on the docket, and that would be the ACT data presentation. Welcome, Amy.
Hello, hello.
Waiting for this.
Okay, let's see here. What am I doing?
The data queen.
Maybe?
Do you dream about data at night, Amy?
Sometimes. Sometimes.
Dreams about losing it all, getting deleted.
Oh, no.
There's so much
Let's
of
say
it.
that.
Good night,
Yeah.
All right.
Drop the temperature down.
You guys hot?
Yes.
We'll be able to cool it down in January.
We
Yeah.
could open a window.
God, it's warm.
Okay, something is not right.
Bingo.
Okay, we'll try this again. All right, sorry about that. All right, so we have ACT data this evening. And I know many of us are familiar with ACT. We may have some memories, positive or negative, from our own ACT experience. But ACT is a nationally recognized college entrance exam. And in the state of Wisconsin, it is also part of the state's assessment system. So all of our 11th graders across the state of Wisconsin are expected to take the ACT. And so we administer that in February of each year. And our students also, of course, can self-select to participate in additional administrations of the exam. So it's given multiple times a year across the country, and students can choose to take that. And many of our students do take it more than once. But everybody has the opportunity to take it as an 11th grader in February of their 11th grade year. And the nice thing is that administration is free to them. So they do not have to pay for that experience. Students receive a score in each category in which they're tested. So the main categories are English, reading, writing, math, and science. They also receive a composite score, which is a whole number, and it's an average of English, math, reading, and science. And they get a score on a scale between 1 and 36. And also the ACT will give them a score in English language arts. They do an average of the English reading and writing score, and they also get a STEM score, which is an average of the math and science. So for the purpose of our conversation tonight, we're going to focus on those 5 main categories: English, reading, writing, math, science, and then the composite score. So just as a reminder as well, we have set district goals around our 11th graders' performance on ACT. For this year, our goal is to have our school district composite ACT score be 1 point above the state average. And in 2021, our goal is for all Waukesha high schools. So each Waukesha high school will earn an ACT composite score 1 point above the state average. So moving from that group score to the individual high school score. So I'm reporting this data tonight as we will look at those results related to these district goals next year. So I have included only those students who were enrolled with us a full academic year. So if you were to go and look at this data or look for the ACT results on the DPI public website, or if you log into Wise-Local, you're going to see a slightly different score because that's going to include all of our students, whereas I have just included those who were enrolled with us on the 3rd Friday of last year. So each chart for each subject is pretty much the same. We've got the state average at the top left there, so you can see for math, the state average across Wisconsin was a 20 for math, and then I've listed each of our schools at the high school and at the high school level, their average score, and in parentheses next to the school name is the number of students included in that school.
And then at the bottom, we have a district average. So our district average in math for our full academic year students was a 20.1. I will note that I did not include scores this year for East because they had such a small number of students who tested. Whenever we have a group less than 10, just to protect the privacy of those students, we wouldn't publicly report those scores, so they're not included here. Those are our math results. Moving on to English, we had a state average of 18.9 and a district average of 19.1. Looking at reading, state average was 19.9, the district average of 20.6. Our science results, the state average of 20.3 and a district average of 20.6. Writing results. Writing results are reported on a 12-point scale rather than a 36-point scale. So our state average was a 6.3 and the district average was a 6.4.
Is that why the writing is not included in the composite?
Yes. And then our composite score results for last spring. The state average was 19.9 and our district average was 20.2.
2022?
20.2, yes.
20.2. Doing group, huh? Well, it's better to be slightly above than at or below.
Always looking to be above that state average for
bet.
sure.
You
So,
bet.
as I talked last month with forward results, and really when we talked in, that would have been September, about AP results, we are always looking at certain action steps around different pieces of data. And some of these will sound familiar because they apply to our forward results as well. But we are working on helping our principals be more data literate and help their teachers improve and continue to grow in their data analysis and data inquiry skills. And so between now and December 31st, every principal will have some experience with our data literacy process and protocols to help structure those conversations. We had our first elementary group last Friday, and we have another elementary group this Friday, and so we're kind of working our way through some small groups there, so that will be done before winter break. Last year, we began utilizing an ACT practice test for our sophomores, and got some really good feedback around this. On ACT Day, just our juniors come to school, or have come to school the last couple of years, to provide that good testing environment. And so last year we invited any sophomores who wanted to participate to take that practice test. And they had an opportunity to get some really detailed feedback
also sit with the answer booklet after they had taken the test and see what they missed and why. Staff got item analysis. They could see how their group of students did on each item. And so, again, got some really good feedback. We'll do that again this year, and all sophomores will participate. So with a little more advanced planning, we can ask everybody to participate in that this year. We also have something new called Method Test Prep. This started last year, and this is available through the Career Cruising resource that students have access to. And so it provides some work in opportunities in math and reading and science, and has some specific ACT prep components. So that's something every high school is using that a little bit differently, but it's something that students can access anywhere, home and or at school. So that's another resource that is relatively new. As we've talked about before, our school SAIL goals continue to focus on student achievement, and so that helps us keep that laser-like focus on helping students grow, which will impact positively our ACT scores. Our AVID implementation will continue to help in this effort as well. And then I know something we've talked about here before, our high school principals are exploring some opportunities for incentives for students engaging with the assessment. So that is something that they continue to look at. So, pardon? Cash. Hey, you know, whatever works, maybe. So that is our ACT update.
I like the things that we're doing, the prep steps. That's key.
Yeah.
It's not, teaching to the test, but it's helping students prepare to be successful, because test taking can be very difficult, especially this kind of test.
Yeah, as we looked at those practice ACT tests, it did reminded me of how challenging some of those can be. So having kids have experience with that prior to the test is just is going to help. Absolutely.
Amy, you said that you did the statistics up there, the data up there without the students that were not with us the previous year. Did you look at comparing the total with the way you looked at it without those students?
So we didn't include students who enrolled after September 15th. Okay. So we have looked at that in the past, and it's maybe a tenth of a point or two difference between the entire group and.
Which way?
It depends.
Oh, really? There's nothing steady there.
No,
Okay.
it can go either way.
How many students are we talking about in that group?
Oh, I'd have to go back and look, but it's not a huge group. I'd hate to estimate, but I could go back and double check.
250, is it 10%?
No.
Less than 25 students.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
All right. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. That would conclude our discussion items. Next up would be other business, recommendations for future committee meetings. Does anybody have anything they'd like to learn more about, discuss?
Yeah, but bringing us stuff.
There's nothing that she's missing?
Nope.
Nothing that you wish that she had on the schedule that's not on there? Right. Talk to somebody about it earlier
I
in the
would talk
day?
to her about it.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure. She
She
knows
knows.
that you would. Okay. Excellent. Well, that would conclude our meeting unless anybody else got anything else. Mr. Dietz.
Last month, we had a presentation on the School District of Waukesha best practices in grading and reporting, this document that we had. And I read it before the meeting, but I read it even probably 5 or 6 times afterwards. And there's a section in there, 2.5 multiple opportunities for summative assessment. And I've had a couple conversations with Jody, and I just want to thank her for relooking at that and having the discussion with me. We both really felt that it That particular section needed some consistency and clarity. She's going to be bringing it back to a district team, the district feedback and reporting team, on the 14th of November. And I look forward to, hearing something, from that, the results of that. Just the consistency piece, so that students and teachers and parents and administration can kind of better understand the intent of what that section really should be.
Yep. Good catch.
So thank you, Jody.
All right, anything else? No? Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 4th, 2018 in the boardroom. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.